All right, shalom, shalom. I'm going to start out this video by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elder bishops, a great millstone that rule well, that teach well while learning truth 100% according to the Bible. I also want to say shalom to the elect, the 144,000 men, prophet, servants scattered abroad the four corners of the earth, and shalom to you, Akwaf, which are you sisters that are sincere in your children, shalom. And then today's video is going to be titled, Jake and Eve loves oppression, right? So I basically got this video here from the brother Arrows of Indignation, 144 shalom to the brother. And I'm going to be building off of this video that he posted where you basically got, the Northern Kingdom giving their views and their opinions on Donald Trump, man, and how they basically believed in this man and thought that everything in which it is that he said he was going to do, that he wasn't going to do. They ultimately knew that he said, of course, he was going to, deport migrants and all of these different types of things. But they ultimately thought that they were safe from these things, man. They thought he was only going to deport criminals and things of that nature that he said he was going to do, but ultimately turn around and this man is doing the exact opposite of that. He's deporting all types of people, people that were born here in the U.S., people that got citizenship and all types of different things. This man is just coming down heavily upon the Northern Kingdom right now, man, through those ICE raids and those deportation things in which it is that they're doing. But hey, the men of the Lord told you Israelites that, man. We told you that this man is your enemy and that ultimately he doesn't like you, man. So I'm going to get this. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 12, verse 10. It said, never trust thine enemy. And who is our enemy? Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. We told you Israelites that, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians. We told you that this man doesn't like you, man. We tell you that week in and week out through these videos, these lessons we do when we go out on the highways and hedges. We tell you who this man truly is, right? It said, for like his iron rusteth, so is his wickedness, man. Right. And we know the worse our iron gets, right, the worse it becomes. And that's the same thing with this man personality, man. As time progresses, the more he's going to become more evil and evil towards you Israelites, man. Right. And this is verse 11. It said, though he humble himself, right, he tell you what it is you want to hear. He tell you, oh, he's going to support you and he's going to make sure that you can make it in this society. He's going to promise you all of these lies. Right. But ultimately, he's going to, stick that knife in your back. As it tells you in Psalms 55 and 21, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, yet were they drawing swords, man. Because this man ultimately does not like you Israelites, man, at all. And it said, yet take good heed beware of him, right? And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust have not been altogether wiped away, man. Right? Because this man is the devil. He was created to be the wicked, man. And ultimately to rule over you Israelites with a rod of iron, man, because we're in his day in our captivity, as it tells you in Baruch chapter 3, verse 8. And I'm actually go to that because that's what Jake doesn't seem to realize, that we're still in captivity, man. They come over here trying to seek a better life, thinking everything is going to be good for them. When we wasn't bought over here to live a good life, man. We wasn't bought over here to make it. We were bought over here to suffer, man, and pay out our debts that we ultimately did for, going against Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. But this is Baruch 3 and 8. It said, behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, right? You so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, talking about us being in this place, America, Babylon the Great. We're still in captivity. We're still in slavery, right? It said, where thou hast scattered us, right? Meaning the heavenly Father, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? For a reproach and a curse, right? Because we're under the curses. It tells you that in Deuteronomy 28, 15 on down to 68, man, about those curses that we were ultimately going to go up under if we disobeyed our power, man. And that's what we're currently up under now. That's why we find ourselves in these situations where, Esau is doing the things in which it is that he's ultimately doing to the Northern Kingdom and unto these other Jakes that are in this place, America, that are being deported and going through the things that they're ultimately going through, right? And it said, and to be subject to payments according to all the iniquities of our fathers was departed from the Lord our power. So that's ultimately why we're in the situations in which it is that we're in, So I'm going to get into this video. Fair use on 1976 Copyright Act. Fair use. Right, and you just see just from a little glimpse of the video, and I'm gonna let the rest of it play, but I got to get one more precept because, as you can see, our people, man, they idolize this devil, man. You know, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. The Stockholm syndrome is very prevalent amongst our people, man, that they love their oppressor, man. They love their master, man, the man that rules over them, that makes life hard for them, the man that's deporting them and throwing them across the border, sending them to all of these different countries and private prisons that they're putting them in, you know, and things of that nature. Yet they still love this man. You know, I never understand it, man. But, you know, as it tells us in the scriptures, and I'm actually get that precept, Lord's will, that our people trust in oppression, man. You know, they don't want to turn back to Yahweh Shem Yahushua. You know, they rather trust in this damn devil, man, you know, and that's why they finding themselves in these situations that are happening, man, being deported, being, you know, snatched out of their houses and, you know, sent into these buses and ICE deporting them and all of these different types of things, man. Ultimately, for you not turning back to the Lord, right? This is Jeremiah 17, verse 5 NLT. This is what the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, says. Cursed are those, right, who put their trust in mere humans, right? Talking about you Jakes out there and you Eves, man. You know, putting your trust in your oppressor, Esau, Edom, right? Trusting in Egypt, who rely on human strength, right? Because you do rely on Esau, man. You rely on this man's system for everything. You rely on him to feed you, to clothe you, to shelter you. You allow him to do all of these things for you. You trust in him and his system, right? And turn their hearts, meaning their minds, away from the Lord. And that's what our people have done, man, due to them ultimately trusting in their oppressor, man. You know, they don't want to seek after Yahweh Shem Yahushua. They don't want to repent and turn back to the Lord and do those things in which it is that is pleasing unto him to the best of their abilities, keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, departing away from wickedness. No, our people want to continue to indulge in this life of, you know, wickedness, man, serving their master, man, you know, and being oppressed. You know, that's what our people ultimately love, man. But as it says in this precept right here, this is what our people need to be more focused on. But we know ultimately that this is only for the elect, you know, and 2/3 of our people will not get it, man. You know, but this is Micah 2:10. It said, arise ye and depart, right? That's talking about spiritually, man, from this place, America, because we know physically we're ultimately still here, of course, but spiritually we have departed from this place, you know, departing from the philosophies and the mindsets and the traditions of this place, right? You know, knowing that this man Esau is our enemy and things of that nature. That's what you know once you depart from this place spiritually. All of these things come into your remembrance of you knowing that who this man truly is and he's not to be trusted. You know, it said, for this is not your rest, right? Because it's not, because we're under the curses, as I read earlier in Baruch 3:8. And it says, because it is polluted, right? This place, America, man, it shall destroy you, even with the sword destruction. And you see what's happening, man, right? This place is only destroying you, Israelites, man. You know, from the food that you eat, from the jobs that you work in that are not paying you enough. Everything in this society was designed to oppress you, man, right? But our people, for some reason, they love that, you know. So I'm gonna get back into the video.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. A wave of disappointment. One of President Donald Trump's most loyal voting blocs, Cuban and Venezuelan immigrants. Now speaking out in Miami, a Republican stronghold, as the recent wave of deportations hits home and the Trump administration moved to end temporary legal status, or TPS, for more than 500,000 people who arrived during the Biden administration. Elena Conde says she came here from Cuba on humanitarian parole in 2023. Her husband, Ariel Lara, crossed the border with Mexico twice, once in 2019 when he was detained and deported, and then again in 2022. 6 weeks ago, he was taken into custody at his residency hearing.
So he was given an appointment to go to ICE. You told him before he left for that appointment, you don't have anything to worry about. You haven't done anything.
Instead, he was transferred to Texas, where we spoke to him from his detention center.
Ariel, ¿qué piensas sobre lo que está pasando ahora en este país, en este momento con respecto a las deportaciones? How do you feel about everything that's happening right now in this country? country with the deportation. You don't understand how this could happen. ¿Qué pensaba que iba a pasar cuando ganó Trump? What did you think was going to happen when Trump won? You're saying you believed the president when he said he was going to deport criminals.
Now, Elena
Right.
is left behind.
And as you can see, like Jake just said, that was deported on the phone, he thought that this man was ultimately going to just detain criminals and not, hardworking, citizens, man. But hey, like I said again, you can never trust this devil. But hey, our people, they trust in this man. So, ultimately they got to deal with the consequences for, the things in which it is that they do, which is ultimately trusting in this man rather than trusting in Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. So I'm actually get this precept as well. This is Isaiah chapter 30. And I'm going to start at verse 9. In the KJV, it said that this is a rebellious people, lying children that will not hear the law of the Lord, right? And that's what the men of the Lord are doing unto you Israelites, telling you that this man Esau Edom is not your friend and to turn back to the Heavenly Father and the Son, man. That's what we're telling you to do. But our people is rebellious. They don't want to do those things, right? Verse 10 would say to the seers, see not, and to the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things, speak unto us smooth things, prophesy deceits. And that's what they ultimately want to hear. They don't want to hear the real thing. They don't want to hear that Esau Edom, the so-called white man, is our enemy and that he's ruling over us and that we're in slavery and captivity and that we're being oppressed. No, they don't want to hear that, even though that's the truth. They don't want to hear that. So they rather tell you to tell unto them smooth things that is pleasing unto their flesh, that can make them feel good while they're in captivity. That's what they ultimately want to hear, and I'm talking about the 2/3, man. It says, verse 11, get you out of the way, turn aside out of the path, cause the Holy One of Israel to cease from before us. And that's really what our people want to happen, man. They don't want these words to be around them, man. They don't want to hear the truth 100% according to the Bible. They want to hear bull stuff, man. They want to hear that everybody is equal and that we're all made equal. And, the white man loves us all. He's our friend and he's not the devil and all of these different types of things. That's what our people okay with hearing, man. That's what they ultimately want to listen to and receive, lies, right? This is verse 12. It said, wherefore thus saith the Holy One of Israel, because ye despise this word, which is what our people do, right? Because if they were seeking Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, majority of them wouldn't find themselves in these situations that they are currently in. It said, and trust in oppression, right? Trusting in the devil and perverseness and stay thereon, right? And that's ultimately what's happening to our people, man, for trusting in this devil, trusting in oppression, trusting in this Babylonian system, trusting in, the devil, basically Esau Edom. They're finding themselves in these situations, getting deported, getting sent out of the country, being thrown into the back of ICE vans and people not even knowing where you're at or located. I mean, hey, this is all comes from trusting in oppression, man, trusting in the devil and his system, So I'm going to get back into the video so we can finish watching it. But yeah, man, this is what happens, And we warned you Israelites, about these things, man. But like I said before, our people ultimately don't listen. Jake is very rebellious, man. And I'm actually go to a precept on that, right? This is Hosea chapter 4, verse 6 in the KJV. And it says, my people, right? Talking about you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, right? Which are the true biblical Hebrew Israelites, according to the Bible. It said, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, right? Because you don't have the knowledge according to the scriptures, man. You people have the knowledge of the world, which is not the truth, right? It said, because thou hast rejected knowledge, right? And how y'all reject the knowledge? Through the servants, the prophets, that the men of the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, have set up in these times to ultimately to warn you Israelites about who the devil is, what's his agenda, and the hate that he has for you, right? So you people reject that, right? So it says, I will also reject thee. And that's why you Jakes are finding yourselves in these situations getting rounded up by ICE, man. That's judgment from Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. And it said that thou should be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy power. I will also forget thy children, man. And like I said again, that's why you Jakes and you Eves, of the northern kingdom and southern kingdom as well, are finding themselves being deported, man. And in these troublesome situations. And I'm actually show an article in which it is that I have, right, touching on a Jake that was from the northern kingdom. The southern kingdom, a so-called Haitian. He was just deported, and he was born in America. So that's letting you know that, hey, Esau doesn't care about you Israelites, man, and we warned you people of these things, It says, man born on U.S. military base deported to Jamaica, a country he's never even visited, right? Here go another one. It said, U.S. says Haitians can be deported days after ruling Haiti an unsafe place for Americans, right? So like I said, man, Esau just showing those horns more and more towards you Israelites, man. You know, and like I said, the men of the Lord have warned you. But hey, as it says in this precept right here, Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 33, KJV, right? And it says, and when this cometh to pass, lo, it will come, right? Talking about these prophecies when Esau is going to start showing his true colors and hatred that he has for you tribes, man, right? When that happens, right, then shall they know, right? Meaning you 2/3 of our people that ultimately didn't hearken unto these words and didn't believe in the prophecies in which it is the men of the Lord have told you, that a prophet, right, of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua have been among them, and that we've been warning you people the truth all along. You people just choose to refuse it and don't want to take heed, man. But hey, it's only going to be to your demise, man. And you know, falling short in these times that are to come, you know. So I'm going to get into this video.
With her daughter, 7-month-old son, and Ariel's 70-year-old grandmother, who has been a U.S. citizen for years. Together, facing a reality they never imagined.
Toda mi familia votó por Trump. Your whole family voted for Trump. Lo apoyaba a Trump durante su campaña. Did you support him? Yo estoy fuera. You're outside of it. You can't vote. Pero te sientes decepcionada. Do you feel disappointed, deceived, engañada? Me siento mal.
Right. But you hear what it is that Eve is basically saying. She said her and her whole entire family voted for Trump, you know, because they believe the things in which it is this man said that he was going to do, make America great again. Right. And he thought that they were ultimately, you know, going to make it great for them. But they're starting to see that that was a lie, which is what we told you people, man. So like I said, you know, these things come upon our people because ultimately due to them just being rebellious, man, being wicked, and ultimately taking heed from the warnings from the prophets, you know. So, yeah, you know, this is pretty much everything I had to say with today's video. Lord's willing to be edifying, just some quick through the spirit. Till the next time, I'm going to say shalom.